welcome to Studio 12. In our previous show, we mostly discussed the role that women in art play. Today we'll be focusing more on the role art has to play on global society. With us here today is another international artist, Nahomi Ximenez from Mexico, who is participating at the festival City of Women here in Slovenia with 2 public actions. Hello Nahomi, and welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much, I'm happy to be here.
Being an artist, how did you choose the themes for your 2 actions in Slovenia?
Well, one of the actions I previously have already done in Mexico, and the artist that first saw my work and was interested in bringing it here was talking to me about it, and I think it was interesting to see that piece somewhere else, where it's a completely different context, but to use the same elements, to see how the piece would change, and then the other one is specific. I specifically thought about Slovenia for this action. It has to do a lot with the impediment of language as a migrant. And if I was a migrant and coming here to work, I am trying to put myself in the shoes of such a migrant that is working and could not understand the language. So I think the language here for me is completely different. So that was specifically why I thought about that project here.
How does the process of creating art for you begin in general? Is it something that is emotional, that comes from within, or is it linked with social problems?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's how social problems affect me emotionally. I think we're all affected by the same problems if we're a little sensible to each other's problems. And that is more or less how I begin thinking about something that I want to express, that it's not just about me, but that it's something that the viewer can analyze because he would be interested in it as well.
And what drives you to create? Is it perhaps anger or love or rebellion or anything else, any other feeling?
It's different feelings, I think. For example, sometimes when I'm working with migration, there are a lot of things that make me angry about it, and sometimes it's love, because in a lot of my work I relate my family, or the memory that my family shares with a collective memory of people, and so that sometimes it's love. It can be any number of feelings. I think with a lot of my pieces I try to do the same things that is done with movies, when there's a very precise, sensible moment when you want to cry in a movie, when you have a little knot in your throat. I think that's what I want to achieve in some of my work, or that it makes you laugh instantly, or makes you cry, or makes you, be aware of your emotions.
So you might say this is the goal of your performances, to achieve this feeling in audiences, am I right?
Exactly, to make people sensitive to something specifically. Mm-hmm.
How important is the idea on one hand, or the concept, and then the realization? What is the correlation?
Well, I think it's half and half, and sometimes you will change percentage, but the project always starts with the idea. But in the kind of piece that I do, you never know what is going to happen. So the work starts working on itself. It's like I have the idea, but it changes completely, and I let it change, because that is what makes it interesting, not that I have one idea and it's going to be like this and people are going to react like this, or, it's not something that is square, because it involves people a lot. Mm-hmm.
Does your audience have to be prepared for your actions or for your work somehow?
No, because in some of my actions I am not even prepared. I just go there with the idea of what I'm going to do, but I never know what is going to happen, and neither does the audience.
And is the spectator somehow a participant? Willingly or unwillingly?
Yes, in many of the pieces, they are participants.
And how do they participate in your experience? In what way?
In what way? Sometimes they are spectators, like in a gallery, but they are more involved, like with a piece as if it was a party, for example, or they are interacting with me, or they, for example, in the first piece that I was doing here, I was hugging policemen, and I was having to explain to them what was the whole idea. And they had questions. It was interesting for me, and this was very nice because they could have thought something else with the piece, right? But I think everybody, when they participate, they have a much clearer idea of what I want to express.
So you think this participation is willing? They do it voluntarily?
Most of the times. Sometimes they don't. Then when I explain to them, they go, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They change their mind?
Yes, because I think a lot of people are used to contemporary art being aggressive or being like confronting in a violent way or an aggressive way to even with the spectator or with the subject that they are trying to talk about.
And what is your view on these extreme practices in visual arts that especially body artists have, like self-injury or violence, like you said?
If I put myself in the spectator's position, I think I would be already very tired of it. And I think I see every day, I see so much suffering and hurt that I don't want to represent that by doing the same thing. There are strong subjects and you have to speak about them, but I think I am really tired of contemporary art doing that. So I am fine with artists representing their work that way, but I have never related my personality with that. So I try to be very honest about who I am, also with the work that I do, because it represents a lot of my own self in the work.
And do you usually work alone? Or what is the difference between working alone and collaborating with other artists?
I think both are very important that as an artist you choose to do. Sometimes working with other artists is so enriching and so like a learning experience. It helps the work in many, many ways. Just looking at other people's work, sometimes you realize that something that you were doing is not entirely correct, that you can change in some ways. Or I think criticism among artists that can open themselves is very important.
Like creative criticism? Or
exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And just like to participate in works together that can relate in theme or in media or something is very, very important. So that is actually one of the main reasons why I was so excited about coming to the festival. Mm-hmm. It's because I was going to get to see so much different work of people from around the world. So.
And do you choose the artists you collaborate with? If you do, how do you choose them?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's only the curator. And when I get to choose them, I think there's something that I have to have in common with them. And when I don't choose them, sometimes I'm surprised. But it's also good that I don't always get to choose them, because if someone else is a curator and is making a program, sometimes even from people that I wouldn't normally choose, I get to learn something.
Could you describe some challenges that you face when creating art?
Good question, because a lot of my work has to do with live research. So I go work with the people, I go ask them, it has to do a lot with putting oneself in the shoes of someone else. If I am talking about migrants, I become a migrant. If I am talking about this and that, this is what I become with live research. People have this collective paranoia nowadays, and even if you explain the project, sometimes they can see you as a threat. So they can ask you to leave, and we don't want to participate, we don't want to cooperate, and just, for example, there was one time that I was in a Indian community in the United States, and I was going in for a project of investigation that would end with work, but they were not interested in me being there, so they were telling me completely, like, just get off our land and you're not welcome here. And I was like, okay.
And your two actions in Slovenia talk about the problems of migrations. Do you talk to immigrants for your research, or just put yourself in their shoes directly?
Well, one action has to do more with violence, and the other one is treating migration. But for example, the one that is talking about migration, it's talking about migration in work. So I talk to people that are not from here, that come here to work. And I also went to the immigration office, and I did a lot of questions of how can I get a work permit, and I got all the instructions. But I also talk with the people that are working here and have maybe began to work here illegally because that was the only media, and now they got their work permit. What did they have to do to get it, and all of those things. And I will also work, so I will do both. And for the other piece, well, it was beginning in Mexico, so I did my research over there, but I really had to talk to policemen over there and just try to convince them. It was also a very difficult time in Mexico because it was more or less when all this violence was starting between drug lords, policemen, soldiers, and now it's people in the street that are involved. So you can be walking any time of the day and policemen will be shooting with drug lords and you will be in the middle. So
difficult research.
Yes, it's very, very difficult research, but it's also things that you live every day. So.
And how does this affect your personal life? This kind of creative process?
It affects it because it's very, very emotional. I think all these problems are common to us, and sometimes we even want to stop watching the news because it's like your country becomes a place that you are not familiar with anymore. It just has changed so much, and the world is changing so much in good ways, but in a lot of bad ways as well. So it affects you, especially when you are using visual art as a form of emotionality as well.
And what do you hope to gain with this? What do you hope to achieve personally or locally, globally, with your actions or performances?
I think it's mainly to get people to be sensitive about problems, because I think one of the most important changes in people has been that we are not caring anymore about each other. So if we start getting sensitive, I think that is a starting point. I don't think that I am one person that can change the world, but if I can help people to go back to being sensitive, maybe it will help a little bit.
Do you think art in general can make a change in politics or global society? Do you think it's strong enough or efficient enough?
Yes, I think it can make a small part. I mean, I think not only art, but I think a lot of areas of work has to cooperate with each other to make a real change. But I think art can make a really important part. There are artists that are also doing work based in trying to do this. It's not only aesthetical work, but it's a very meaningful social issue.
And do you think that most artists are like this?
I've met a lot of artists, and I think the ones I choose more like friends are the ones that really do. So that it's just about having things in common.
What do you think is the main purpose of art in this world?
That's a good question, but it's very, I think there is not one main because it's people that do art, and it's people are so different. So you have so many different interests in artists, and there's also different kind of public. So I don't think that everybody would be appreciative of my work. Maybe there's some other person that wants to go see art that is using mutilation and more violence. So there's public for every kind of artist as well.
And what would you think the world would look like without art?
Very grey, without all these colors, I think.
Could you explain to us what do you think society would be like?
It's just that it's a difficult question for me because, for example, I cannot imagine a world without music, or without being able to dance, or without acting, or without painting and actions. I don't imagine that. So it's a very difficult question.
Do you think there'd be a loss emotionally for people?
Yes, for sure, yes. I mean, I am not the first artist to say that this is a very popular thing. I think everyone is an artist in a different way. And I am also a teacher. I teach teenagers, and I can see that completely with my teenagers. If I just help them a little bit, or encourage them a little bit, not, make them their art sense put down, they completely become artists, and they can be really encouraged by a lot of ideas.
So if I understand correctly, it enriches their lives somehow?
Yes, definitely.
Do you try to live in accordance with the ideals and values that you convey to your audiences?
Yes, I think it's a walkie-talkie thing. You walk what you talk, or you talk what you walk. The two should go hand in hand. Otherwise, maybe you're not so honest about your work. And I've seen a lot of that with a lot of artists, that their whole person is, you can see that relating to their work.
And is there anything else you would like to tell our audience about your work, about the creative process, about art in general, or being an artist, what it's like in this world, in this society?
I think it's a challenge nowadays to be an artist. It might be a challenge any profession, because the world has changed so much. But you also have to be positive about even all the negative things happening in the world. So as an artist, you have to embrace all those challenges, I think, and just try to change in the good ways that the world is also changing.
Do you get support in that?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I don't try to make that an important part of my process. Otherwise, I can get really depressed.
And do you think art is still alive in our society?
I hope so, yes. I think in different places, in different ways. I mean, for example, there might be a city that doesn't take a lot of importance in culture and art movements, and sometimes those artists have to go away to another place or something. But the world is very big, I think.
Thank you, Nahomi, very much for joining us and for sharing your visions.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
As a conclusion, let me read another short quotation from the City of Women website. What remains to persist and insist is art, which reflects upon wider or merely local and violence-soaked images of the peripheral global south. It is for this reason that we decided to invite artists from all artistic genres and many peripheral continents to participate in this year's festival and thus contribute to the contemplative and discursive arena evolving around the issue of the global south, with their own discourse on political, social and cultural reality. We've had a chance of getting acquainted with the impact that art has in the global world, especially the art of the Festival City of Women. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching.